Good evening, Board of Directors. Thank you for joining us this evening for our special board meeting today. It is now 5:45 p.m. I will now call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have our agenda today in front of us. If there aren't any changes, I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. The next item for agenda is public comment. Jenny, did we receive any public comment? Okay. The next item would be a board action item, the 2025-26 Woodburn School Board Goals. In our packet, we have a draft of our 25-26 board goals. These goals were crafted from activities and brainstorming we did during our retreat a few weeks ago. Does anyone have any questions or comments? If there aren't any changes to board goals, I would entertain a motion to adopt the 25-26 board goals.
I move to adopt the 2025-2026 Woodburn School Board goals.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting the 2025-2026 Woodburn School Board goals as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with a 3-0 vote. We now have our board goals for the year. Okay, so we are going to work session. We have Vince here with us to talk about effective meeting practices and governance culture and community engagement. So I would like to invite Vince Adams from the Oregon School Boards Association to present our professional development for tonight.
Thank you, Chair Ballweber. Sorry.
That's all right.
It's good to see you again, Superintendent Larios and the Woodburn Board. It's great to be with you again. So in this next installment, we had committed to coming back and really having a deeper conversation on effective meetings. I'll give you a little sneak preview while I'm getting ready to share my screen here. Let me get in here. Is that effective meetings is something that I've been teaching pretty much the whole time I've been with OSBA over the last 5 years, mostly at conferences. And this is an adaptation of that slide deck, but I've added some additional content here, particularly around board culture. And also we've had a lot of discussion around First Amendment rights and speech rights and things like that. So we'll take a little bit of a deep dive. We'll also take a little bit of a deep dive with public comment. My understanding is you're changing your policy, so we can discuss it a little bit further. So, but why do meetings matter, and how does it affect our culture? And ultimately, the board's culture impacts the mechanics of was it that bad?
I want to make sure it's capturing what you're saying, because we're gonna have board members rewatching it.
No, the culture of the board, of the group, impacts the way that you conduct your meetings. So the board just demonstrated a really smooth execution of board procedures. Just doing a couple of routine pieces of board business, but it was very smooth, well executed. Clearly, board members were prepared, understood, and it looked great from this side of the table. So yeah, the way we operate in our meetings, it affects our meeting behaviors, how we show up, and we know the education science tells us that how we show up as individuals impacts our board behavior, and that ultimately finds its way into classrooms. And so you can see that I've got this cycle up on the screen, because the way that you conduct your meetings sets the preconditions for the next meeting. So if we're struggling in a meeting with procedure, if we're struggling with our interpersonal or interactions, then that's going to make things harder for next time. And that's why really focusing on your meetings is really important for cultivating an effective board culture, because that's where your board culture is expressed. It's how the public sees you and gets to know who you are. And especially now that we're live streaming meetings, you're on television every time that you're in a board meeting, and our folks can see us. So yeah, this is not inconsequential. And I wish boards spent more time focusing on this aspect of their work and really fine tuning how they or cultivating their craft. So that's what we're going to spend this evening talking about. I built this slide deck for y'all. You're the first ones to see it. So I'm going to have you evaluate me at the end, and I'd love to get your feedback, but please stop me at any time. So agenda. So we're going to talk about what do we do before the meeting, because that sets us up for success once we get in there. And then what are we supposed to be doing during the meeting? And then looking at some meeting processes, and then we'll wrap up our conversation around retaining focus throughout. I mean, I've got a bunch of slides. There's probably about 50 slides in this deck, but none of them are more important than your questions. Also, I want you to be looking, consuming this information with a critical eye towards your own board practices and how you feel that you can improve your practice. So this presentation's full of suggestions. You don't have to take all of them. Many of them you already demonstrate. So let's dive in, and anything that you identify as something that you want to work on, I'll go ahead and capture it here, and then I'll reflect that back to the board. Okay. All right. And like most of the time when I create these slide decks, I forget what's in them. And so each slide is a new surprise. So I have no idea. Actually, no, this slide. So what are the ingredients of a smooth board meeting? I'll give them to you. The first is clear expectations on how we're supposed to show up. I remember my first year on the school board, and the expectations were not clear. I learned a little bit by watching the board, but there was an operating agreement, but I didn't understand it. Yeah, and I wasn't coached before I stepped into that first meeting, and I felt really awkward. And so it's really important that we have clear expectations on how we're supposed to show up. We have policies. You have an operating agreement that helps do that, but having a coach really helps with that. Structure, we have to have structure to our meetings. Of course, we're constrained by law. We have numerous policies, but you have to have procedures. How do we do our work in a way that's going to be effective and that we can all agree on and that we can all uphold? Ultimately, you can't operate under a set of rules unless everybody is willing to play along. And that's when we see boards really struggle, is when we have a member on the board that isn't willing to play by the rules. And that's when things really do get challenging. Any questions, comments? Feel free to jump in at any time. Okay, so one of the most important policies, and we talked about this one up last time, is policy BVF, board member standards of conduct. This pertains to just the basics of how we show up, that we're going to conduct our work with care and respect, and that's reflected in here, and constrains our behavior both in the boardroom and outside of it. The other is a board operating agreement. The board has already reviewed yours, but these are essential for highlighting those key virtues that you want to maintain, the things that you're doing well, and then the things that you want to work on. And you guys have already identified that stuff and reviewed your operating agreement. I didn't look at your policy on this. I don't know. Do you guys explicitly identify Robert as the way you're going to conduct your meetings? Some boards do, some don't. If you're gonna buy a book, buy the one on the right, the one that's Robert's Rules in Brief. It's a great book. It covers the rules in plain language that even I can understand. The other one, I own both of these books. The other one is, the big thick one. For a school board, it's unnecessary. You're working with small group rules, and there's really only a handful of parliamentary maneuvers that you really need to get your work done. You're not a legislature or a homeowners association. Anyway, no, that was a good. Thank you for laughing at my joke. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit there. This is not a Parley Pro talk. I'm not going to teach you about Parley Pro directly. I will mention some and explain them, but I'm not going to do a top to bottom on Parley Pro tonight. If you have any specific questions on parliamentary procedure, I'm happy to answer them though. Yeah, my colleague, Janet, I think Janet and Kristen are teaching it.
Yeah.
Which is great because normally I'm the Parley Pro guy. Okay. So let's do before the meeting. And I'm sorry I just grabbed this photo because I thought it was a great photo. Has nothing to do with meetings or anything. It's Halloween and I want a jacket just like that. So yeah, so meetings start before the actual meeting. There's a lot that we have to do. And a big part of that is agenda planning. So I have consistently said, this is a quote of myself. It takes four people to do agenda planning, in my opinion. It takes a chair because the chair has the authority under policy to establish the agenda in collaboration with the superintendent. So you absolutely have to have those two people. You also need your administrative professional because they're the ones that are keeping the records. They're going to write the agenda and notice the meeting and do the actual mechanics of getting this meeting done and ready to go. Oftentimes they're the person that's been in the position longest. So they remember 10 years ago when the board was talking about this particular topic, and both the superintendent and the board members in the room don't remember because they weren't there. But it's often, and Jenny, I think you've been in the job like 7 years or something like that. Yeah. 11. See, 11 years. So you remember the conversations the board was having 11 years ago. And we have a new cast of characters today. So that's the value of having the administrative professional. And then having the vice chair is nice, or having a rotating member is a good practice that I've seen, where they just rotate folks in so they get a look under the hood of how we build these agendas. Alternate, I like having the vice chair. It depends on how you plan your succession. If you have a fairly linear succession habit, it's almost time. That's not me. I was like, oh my God, it's time to restart. No. Anyway, if you have a fairly linear succession with your officers where the vice chair is everybody's looking at you, schedule your restart. No, but if you have a linear line of succession where the vice chair then becomes the chair, then it's really good to have the vice chair in agenda planning so you have that continuity and they learn how to do that work. If it's not as linear, not that definite, then just having a rotating member is fine. What's the next? Yes. So no surprises. And this is in your operating agreement, but it's in part of everything that we do, because when there are no surprises, we're cultivating trust, right? And so one of the big pieces here is having an annual calendar. And Jenny, I think I've shared the spreadsheet. Use the spread. You have one? Yeah. So that has the file that I use, and I literally use. I'm the secretary on a nonprofit board, and so it has a tab for each month that calculates, and I'll show you what it looks like here in just a sec. But that plans each month's meetings. including budget meetings. You can include work sessions, all of that allows you to plan those. You're going to be working with three upcoming meetings at any given time, or you should be. So the one that's coming up in the next 2 weeks, and then the one that's a month out, and the one that's 2 months out. So you're always working with three agendas at any given time. So that one that's 2 months out, it's still a little nebulous. We're still trying to figure that out, what's going to be on there. We got some things, but not everything. We don't know what's that. And so they firm up as we get closer to them. You want to announce upcoming topics, and board chair, this is a really good practice of communicating with your board, saying if you know ahead of time, it's a nice practice to send out an email before the meeting. And it's also nice to let people know on, upcoming topics, particularly if you have members that have sponsored a topic. I want to talk about discipline. And I asked for it 6 months ago. I'm still waiting for that report. It's nice to say, Director Adams, we'll be doing that in, 2 months from now, something like that. And you're going to use a parking lot because the board has a lot of topics to talk about. The district has a lot of operational things that they need you to consider in your business meetings. And so we can't get at everything all at once. And so you're going to need a list where you're going to be holding on to those topics and going back to that every time you're in agenda planning and doing that. Does that sound kind of like the work that you guys do? Good.
Yeah, and Michael comes to meetings too, so.
Perfect. Yeah. And so when you're doing this planning, you're doing detailed planning. So you're estimating the time for the items. And so this is what the spreadsheet kind of looks like. That's a little tough to read, but it's literally a spreadsheet. And you can see in the yellow areas, I've actually put in time. So we put in our start time. This meeting's going to start at 6. And then we have a call to order and opening ceremonies. That's going to take 5 minutes. We got board member reports for 10 minutes. Superintendent gets 15 minutes. Student reps are going to report for 10 minutes, and then we're going to have public comment for 30. We'll take a recess after that for 10 minutes, and then we're going to come back. We're going to have 3 reports and then consider the consent agenda. And so what the spreadsheet does, it literally adds up everything. And so that's a 2.5 hour meeting. So when we're facilitating our meetings, so we have to look at that. And so item 1, depending on what it is, maybe it's the cell phone ban. Can we get that done in 20 minutes? Probably not. You probably talked longer than 20 minutes on that topic when you were considering it. I don't know. Maybe, and sometimes you may have to dedicate a whole hour to that conversation, which is going to blow out your meeting, but that's the part of a detailed agenda planning. And this is where chair and vice chair have to really represent the interests of the board and making sure that there's adequate time for the board to process that topic and they're ready to go ahead and make a decision. This is the one I have for school boards. I pulled the suggested items from, don't tell Spencer I did this. They have a document that has like things, required things. So I pulled it out of that document and I put them on there. So you know what to pull up into those, the operationally required things like receiving annual state performance data. That happens. This is November. Notify county elections office. Oh, that's an election year. So financials, that's going to happen every month. You get the idea. So agenda planning is really detailed and it's really important. But if you are thoughtful in the way that you set these up, it sets the stage for an effective meeting. I think I have a couple more things that I wanted to talk about here. Oh, sorry. So this is the key thing. Don't overload the agenda. Evidence shows that boards that have meetings about 3 hours long or a little bit shy of that tend to have better outcomes. And there's a really good reason for that. We're all human. After 3 hours, we get tired. It's hard to work longer. So another nice thing to do is be mindful of who's giving reports. So sequence to get staff and families home. So that means front loading those reports, getting them at the front of the agenda and getting your public comment at the beginning of the agenda. So folks can go home, and if the board's going to be there until 9:30, you don't have to keep principals there the whole time because they got to get up early and open schools and things like that. So we always want to be mindful of our staff. Okay. Any questions? This sounds like what you're doing, so awesome. Timers are awesome. So that's what I have, and I have an hour and 41 minutes. I love that. That's so helpful. Hopefully I won't use all the time. Okay, let's talk about consolidate. We've had this conversation, if I recall correctly. We talked about consolidated information in action, and it's something that you're using. Although I think consolidated information was something that was a little novel to you guys.
Confirmation items.
Okay. So consent agenda is things for action, and then there's also consolidated information. So those are just reports that staff are not going to come to the podium and give a report on, but we're going to put it in the packet anyway, so board is aware. You are expected to read those things and be conversant. Anything in consolidated information, you can pull that out and ask questions on. It's really nice if you're going to do that. Oftentimes the staff member that gives you report and consolidated information is not necessarily in the audience that night. So if you have questions on that, get those questions in ahead of time so that staff member can be in the room and answer those for you. Or you can get them offline, either way. Okay, so you guys are already using consolidation, so I'm not gonna beat that horse because there's other things to talk about here. Let's see, preparing for meetings. Yeah, what did I put here? So first is a timely packet. What does timely mean? What's your lead time getting your packet out? What do you aim for? Yeah, you try to give them a weekend to go digest it. Yeah, 7 days with a weekend is good. Getting questions ahead of the meeting is really, really important, even if it's 30 minutes before the meeting. And I've been there. I've been the bad board member that's been prepping my packet the day of the meeting. And I'm like dashing out emails to the superintendent, letting him know what my questions are. So even if he can get it ahead of time, it's not as surprising. He's prepared for that. He can at least get on the phone with that principal and at least get an answer so he can respond to it. We want to give them as much lead as we can, even if it's small, but try to get them in days before. How do you guys, I have the 3 new members. So how's it going prepping your packets? What's your process? I'm just curious. Everybody's got a different process.
Go ahead.
You guys use Boardbook? I see devices.
That's what I would-
Nice.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, usually the first thing is just kind of like a quick scan and then seeing what kind of pops up or highlights. And then usually I will then kind of leave it where I'll go back granted, sometimes I take quite a bit to go back, which is kind of like what you mentioned right before the meeting, trying to go back if there was something that I
Yep.
needed that refresher in.
How about you, Michael?
Yeah, I kind of read it, just skim through it the first time, kind of leave it by itself, and then come back once I, have that time to ponder the question, see what, is still remaining, and then just kind of go item and really get down on the questions that I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm retired, so I do read it, top to bottom. Jenny takes the time to do it. I take the time to read it. Sometimes I skim it first and then I go back and read it, like the last packet had a bunch of policies in it.
Yeah.
Had I known some of them were optional, I might not have read them all, but I did. I read them all. And then at our Friday session with Juan, I had some questions, and that's usually where I bring those up. So if there's anything that we want brought up at the meeting, they'll know about it ahead of time, so
Yeah.
they can be prepared.
When you're prepping your packet, do you have your email to the superintendent open while you're doing it? So that's a cool trick, is that So you're sitting there in your bunny slippers on the couch, prepping your packet on the weekend and open, I don't know what your email platform is. So open Gmail and just, get that open every question that you have, you just start dropping them in as you're going along. It's a nice way, creates an efficiency there. Do you guys use the notes in Board Book?
I do. We've just kind of started with it, so this will
Yeah.
be our, second full meeting with it and stuff, so.
Oh, wow. So you guys are really new.
Yeah.
I would urge you. So there's a bit of a discussion going on at OSBA about meeting notes and their availability and how they should be stored and whatnot. The nice thing about notes in Board Book is it alleviates all that discussion. So anything that you're writing on, any notes that you take tonight, those are public documents. Any document that you use in the course of a board meeting is, publicly available. If your correspondence during a board meeting, that's a public record. So, now I'm old school. I mean, notes, doodles and everything, we're supposed to be turned into the board secretary. Now, I'll be honest with you. I think we talked about this last time. I had a whole banker's box of school board notes that ended up going back to the district office. Now, I have no idea what they did with them, but anyway, but I had switched to taking my notes, all my questions, everything went into Board Book. And I had no notes physically when I was in the meeting. It was all virtual, which was really nice. And I would urge you to become power users of Board Book since or whatever platform, meaning document platform you choose to use, taking those notes virtually just completely alleviates it. It automatically makes it part of the public record and you're done. You never have to worry about it. And you won't have a banker's box of notes to turn in at the end of your tenure on the board. So yeah. That was member notes. Great. Good job, Vince. Anything else on prepping meetings?
I know one of the things that we do too, because when we were at the OSBA conference, we talked about we really wanted to be a collaborative board. And
Mhm.
so usually at the board meeting, we'll ask, like, do you have anything that you want on the agenda? So it's not just Michael and I, but everybody has the opportunity to say, I'd really like to see this on the agenda and what they want to hear. So that everybody's involved in the making of it, sort of.
At the end of the board meeting, you're soliciting agenda items?
Yeah, because we have like something
Yeah.
on the agenda for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just want everybody to have a say and make sure everybody's ideas are presented and asked about. So
Yeah, we'll talk about end of the meeting comments, but yeah, that's a fun, as long as it doesn't get out of hand, that's a great practice.
yeah, we don't usually.
It can get out
So
of.
far, we have.
We'll talk about it here in just a little
We
bit.
have not gotten out of hand.
Okay, that's it for before the meeting. Okay, so let's dive into the meeting itself. All right. This is well-worn territory for me. So 6 principles of meetings. So I've been teaching this for a long time. These are, I think, Betsy Miller Jones, who was she started out as a trainer at OSBA I don't know when, probably 80s, and eventually became the executive director. I think these were her 6 principles of meetings, but they're good. They're really good. And they're very fundamental. So the first 2 are just it's the foundation of democracy, that the majority has the right to decide, that we're going to use majority rule, the democratic process for the board to make decisions, but the minority has a right to be heard in that process. And so this really strikes to the fundamental fairness of American democracy. And so how do we do that? How do we operationalize this? Now, I'm a big fan of Jurassic Parliament. Anybody heard of Jurassic Parliament? Jenny's heard of Jurassic. So Anne McFarland, bless her heart, she is a national treasure. Wonderful little old lady who is a parliamentarian. She lives in Washington. It's called Jurassic Parliament because she teaches parliamentary procedure with plastic toy dinosaurs,
Ah,
which is so sweet and it's really fun. But anyway, I'm purloining some technique from her. This two-time round robin is something that she has in her book, and I really, really advocate for it. So yeah, just using a structured way to control our discussion. Now, did we have this conversation last time? Okay,
don't think we
great.
did.
Then it'll be new. Okay, so you guys just demonstrated how to make a motion and adopt it, right? So, I mean, we have a main motion. I think Annabelle, no, it's Michael that was doing main motions just a little bit ago. So a main motion is just a proposal for the board to take some sort of action. Now, the ones you were taking tonight were not momentous, they're routine, but it's a proposal to take some sort of action. Now, we always have a second. Why do we have a second? What's the purpose of the second in this ritual? Yeah, that one person cannot run off with our meeting, that at least two human beings on this decision-making body wants to at least have this conversation. Doesn't mean we're agreeing to it. And I have seconded motions that I was going to vote against, just because I wanted to have the conversation, just to get it on the table. Okay, so we second just to make sure that we want to have the conversation. Next piece is that the chair is going to restate the motion. Why?
To make sure everybody knows what's been said and to get it in the record.
Yeah, so for clarity, just to make sure that we're about to enter into discussion and debate, right? And so what exactly are we talking about? Did I just heard the motion the first time? Maybe I missed something, so we're going to restate it and make it clear. It's been moved in second and two, and you demonstrated that really well, Debbie. Let's see, next one. So we're going to debate. This is the time for those in the dissent to voice their concerns. This is really important. This is why the democratic process works so well, is because, and why we get diverse groups of people together to do decision making, because we check each other's blind spots. I may think this proposal is great. I can't wait to vote yes on this thing, but I may not realize that there's a really big unintended consequence that I'm just not aware. And until someone in the dissent raises that in debate, I may be completely blind to that. So it's really important. This is the time to dissent, is during the debate. You can also amend during this time. I want to amend the motion, the main motion. We always amend to make it better, to improve it. Okay, to avoid those unintended consequences. Okay. Now the chair is going to restate that motion again. Why?
Well, if you'd amended it, then it's a different motion. So
Yep,
you
it's
want
new
to-
motion.
It's a new motion, so they need to hear that and have clarity. Make
Yeah.
sure you've gotten it right.
Yeah.
Questions? Does it have to be the same person who made the motion? And I don't see a second on that amendment.
Yeah, so I didn't go through the
Mhm.
whole process of amending, but yes, an amendment, I move to amend. It's another main motion. Yeah, like I said, this is not a Parley Pro talk, but you're absolutely right. Yes, you would have to second and approve that
Okay.
and come back all the way around. And you would either have the original main motion if the amendment failed, or the amended motion, and then you'd go ahead and restate it. Yep.
And discuss it.
Yeah, and goodness gracious, if everyone has had ample time to speak to the motion, we've potentially amended that. We're probably, I don't know, 20, 30 into that conversation. Man, do I even remember what the motion is?
Mhm.
That's why we restate the motion. So we're crystal clear about what it is we're about to vote on, because that's the point. We are going to vote on this. That's the next step. So purists would say you use same sign. I would say no's are better. Just to make it clear,
Mhm.
but it's your
Yeah.
it's your party.
I'm just an old school Parley Pro
I
person.
get it.
so-
I know.
I was on a
And
state team, so that's But yeah,
Totally
We can bring
fine.
that.
As long as it works for you guys and everybody's clear, as long as Jenny's clear and can record it. Okay, so we go ahead and vote. Chair announces the results. Secretary records it, and then we're moving on, right? This is not the time to explain why you voted no on the motion. So that moment has already passed. That needed to happen in debate to say, I'm voting no against the motion for this reason because of this unintended consequence. Okay. Yeah, don't do it at the end. And we're moving on. So when someone says, well, can I make a quick comment? It's like, no, we're moving on to the next agenda item. And that's the nature of Robert and the way we run meetings with Robert. And we'll talk about the differences here in just a little bit. Okay, so 2-time round robin. So invoking Ann McFarland of Jurassic Parliament again. Yeah, the mover always speaks first. Chair always speaks last. Everyone has a chance to speak once before anyone speaks again. And members only speak twice. And if you're really good, you'll constrain the time that you're allowed to speak. So what's really nice about this, I know that feels really rigid, but what's really nice about it is what I have observed on my own boards is that board members show up prepared and ready to speak. They have their talking points for each of the agenda items already planned. They tend to speak less. They don't use their full 2 minutes because they've thought about what they're going to say. And they get it out and they're done, and then you move on. And it constrains the amount of time each person can speak. If each person gets 2 minutes each time, if you utilize that, that's 4 times 5, that's 20 minutes just in debate. So these conversations can be sprawling. So you want to constrain that down if you can. It's a really good way to make your meetings more efficient. Let's see. So this is what it looks like. Mover speaks, then member 2, member 3. Yeah, member 4. Sorry, I've got a little bit of lag here. And then finally the chair gets to speak, and then you can go around again. So how do we operationalize this? I think my next slide is speaking charts. So when I was chairing the Corvallis board, we had this 2 formats here. The one on the top there is something that you can embed into your agendas. And I don't know if you do that. Do you give her an annotated agenda with the script and all the good stuff? Yeah, so what you can do is put voting charts in. And I can attest that this saved a board during the pandemic because the chair was recording and the board secretary had gone offline. They lost power, whatever. They were, technology happened. Oh, no board secretary, they're not recording the meeting. But because the chair had a speaking chart, they recorded all the votes and everything. You can also record who's the mover, who's seconded, and then the outcome of the votes in here as well. But what's nice is, so you just go down the list. Whoever moved, they get to go first. You just put a little M there, moved. And second is, I used a 2 with a little thing on there. It doesn't matter. But second, and then you just work your way through. And that's how you implement them. You can also do it as a separate list. When I was teaching during the pandemic, we were virtual. I would use a speaking chart. So I had things where I wanted people to participate. So I just made a list of their names. And then I would use a speaking chart so I could systematically get board members to participate virtually. So it's a really nice thing. So you can see here, I even put your names in there. Good for me.
You did.
Yeah.
It used to be members from the Springfield board. But yeah, so adopting the agenda, and you can mark up who speaks and the actual tally on the vote, the resolution and whatever. So really, speaking charts are really handy and a good way to duplicate, have redundancy in recording the outcome of the vote. All right. All right. Third principle, members have a right to information to help make decisions. So information, yeah, I have a slide here that talks about complete information. We always seem to want information, but there are going to be times when you don't have all the information you need to feel comfortable casting a vote. And when you're in that place, that's when you want to raise a point of information. Say, for instance, we want to repaint the baseball shed, but what's the budgetary impact? How much is it going to cost? Well, we don't know that. That wasn't in the report. Well, can we get that information? So you'd raise a point of information, to get that. A point of information is just a way to interrupt. It's kind of like point of order. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. To just pause the meeting and say, hey, can we get this information for the group? The other, if we can't get that information, if we don't have the facilities director, they're not in the room and we can't get a hold of them to get what that budgetary impact is, we may have to postpone. So taking a motion to postpone to a specific time is another great maneuver. Most people mistake postponement for tabling. What's the difference between tabling and postponing? So tabling only happens within the context of the current meeting. Anything left on the table at the end of the meeting dies. Postponement extends beyond the meeting. So usually when we say, can we table that to our next meeting? That's not what they actually mean. They mean we're postponing it to our next meeting. So that's what most often you'll use postponement. You use tabling if you have an agenda item that you need. For example, say we were going to get a report on, we were going to repaint the baseball shed, right? But we need a report from the facilities director. But they're not going to show up for another hour, but they're at the beginning of the meeting. What we can do is take up a motion to table until they arrive. So that delays that agenda item until later within the context of the current meeting. Whereas postponement, if we can't get the information, then we're going to have to go ahead and push that out to another meeting. Okay. So next one, yeah, courtesy and respect are required with the emphasis on required. Yeah, we definitely want to maintain decorum in the boardroom, particularly amongst board members. Sometimes we struggle with it with members of the community because they're coming in and they're feeling strongly. But we always want to use courtesy and respect amongst board members and staff. And it's something that you want to maintain. So, yeah, all of these actions are out of order. Interruptions. So if a member is speaking and another member just jumps in and interrupts them, not allowed. Criticizing past actions of the board. You can do that if the board is taking that matter up again, but otherwise we don't get to criticize past actions of the board. We demonstrate unified governance. Personal remarks. We don't talk about criticizing another member's motives, discourteous remarks, insulting language, personal attacks, inflammatory language. Who determines what is inflammatory language?
Is that me? I don't know.
Yeah, who sets the bar for insulting language?
I'm assuming it would be the chair. Is that not correct?
You enforce the rule.
Enforce the rule. Does the superintendent do that?
No.
No?
Everyone
Yes, the board.
Ah.
You decide what is criticizing another member's motives. You set the standard for that. For yourselves, we'll talk about public comment here in a little bit and people's right to speak. But we constrain our own speech much more than we do members of the public. Okay. Let's see, I have another thing. So to put this in practice, we use point of order and appeal. What is point of order?
If you see something that one of those things happen, then you could say point of order and then you could bring that up.
Yeah, it's a means by which to interrupt the meeting.
Mhm.
It's always in order. You can always do that. So if there's a problem with the meeting, with meeting procedure, then we're going to raise a point of order. You know, you say, so imagine I'm on your board, I'd be point of order, and you'd say, what is your point? You know, the members, called the superintendent, cream-faced loon. And that's insulting language.
Mhm.
And then you could say, the
Your
point is well taken. The point is well taken. Members will refrain from insulting language. Notice that I spoke in the third person. We never want to make it personal. Now, maybe I think, cream-faced loon is, I'm going to appeal. So appeal, any ruling of the chair can be appealed. So I can call appeal. What is your appeal? Cream-faced loon is a literary reference and is not an insult. And so then you can process that by saying, will the ruling of the chair stand? Yes or no? So anyway, sorry to call you a cream-faced loon.
What's on my face?
It's just a literary.
Bonus points. Who's the author of the cream-faced loon insult? It's not Marjorie Taylor Greene. Shakespeare.
I was gonna say Shakespeare and Mark Twain were the two insulting folks. in there.
Shakespeare's
Great, yeah.
insults are wonderful. All right. All members have equal rights and privileges and obligations. The big one here is control of discussion. Yeah, members always should seek recognition before speaking. How are you guys doing with that?
I mean, people raise their hand or, then.
And wait
call
for-
on 'em. Yes, I think we do fine with that.
Wait for eye contact usually
Mhm.
too.
Yep, the knowing glance.
Yeah.
Yeah, all fine. But yeah, seeking recognition. So you're not talking over each other. You're not having an open-ended discussion. Understand that this is all within the context of a business meeting. We're going to talk about work sessions later. This is all in the context of a business
So
meeting.
this is where that chart would help.
Probably
The discussion, the chart that you had.
yes.
With
Yeah.
the members on it, because then you would make sure you did that and then,
Particularly if you're not going to call on them
yeah.
in turn.
Mhm.
If they're going to go popcorn style, then you have to do tick
Right.
marks to keep
Yeah.
up with them. Which is fine. You can do it that way.
Mhm.
Or you can call on them in turn and do it systematically. And this is the 2-time round robin rule. No one may speak a second time until everyone who wishes to do so has spoken once. The chair must wait as well. You can't recognize yourself. You always go last. Let's see.
Oh, you made me choose.
All discussion must be germane to the motion. What does this mean?
Well, you can't go off
Yeah.
on some wild goose chase when
I'm-
you talk. You have to talk
Yeah.
about what we're talking, what
Mm.
We're
the
not going to talk about school buses or transportation while we're talking about
painting
the
shed.
baseball show. Don't allow sidebar discussions. Strictly speaking, is this Robert's rules?
I don't know, it's just etiquette.
This is well, I mean, under Robert, sidebar conversations, if they're not disruptive, are permissible.
Really.
This is an area where I pretty stridently disagree with Robert, and I would recommend that you not allow sidebar conversations. That's either in the room, leaning over and chatting to your dais neighbor. I've seen where members of the board are interacting with people in the audience and whispering, and then of course we've got these things. So if I'm sitting here with this, doing this in the middle of a meeting, is that a sidebar conversation?
It makes people think you're not paying attention to.
Yeah. Particularly if someone is sitting here
Mhm.
and you're sitting here looking at your phone. And then who am I talking to?
Yeah.
Because I could be talking to anybody. I talked to a board member, this was a couple of years ago, she went and testified before Congress. And that's what all the members of the committee were sitting there looking at their phones while she was testifying. She was
Yeah, I can imagine.
angry. Yeah, don't do sidebar conversations. One, it breaks public trust, and it's just not respectful. I think the public expects us to be present while we're doing this work. That said, we may have parents on the board or you have something going on. It's not inappropriate to check in on your kids. It's okay. You can but it's nice to say it out loud.
Mhm.
I'm just checking on my kiddos. Interruptions are only allowed to maintain order. And how do we interrupt?
Point of order.
Yeah, exactly. Point of order. And if we need information, point of information. Those are our two interruptions. I don't know what else I have here. Okay. All members have equal rights and privileges. Yeah, so this is the other one. The other thing that we have that we're responsible for is for casting votes. It's the purpose for which you are elected. So try as much as you can to avoid abstaining. It's a can or should question. You can abstain. In my opinion, you should not. Your job is to cast votes. The
But if
other,
you do abstain, you have to like state the reason. Didn't you tell us that at our,
I don't think you
retreat?
have to, but you should.
Yeah.
You should during debate. If you're going to abstain from the vote, then you should state during debate why you are
You're
going to
abstaining,
abstain. So that your colleagues can understand your reasoning. That may sway their vote.
Can I mention something about that?
Yeah,
In our policy, it talks about conflict of interest. And when you do have a conflict of interest, you state what it is, whether you have a potential conflict of interest or you do have a conflict of interest, and then you state why, and then you could abstain. But if you have a conflict of interest, you have to tie it, or if you're going to abstain and it's because of a conflict of interest, you have to state
That's what it was.
it. It goes
Yeah.
together.
and that is different. That's a recusal. You're
Mhm.
recusing yourself from the vote because you have a conflict of interest. Abstaining is when I don't agree with this and I don't want
Mhm.
to take a stand on this. So,
We need to teach that more at OSBA conferences.
okay, it's a nuanced point.
Yeah.
And of course, respecting and upholding board policies in the law. We're all responsible for that. Okay. And last one is members have a right to an efficient meeting. So when we're and again, this is the context of a business meeting because that's where we use Robert. We're going to take one subject at a time. We're only taking up one motion at a time, unless we're going to amend it. And even then we do that in a linear process. All remarks are germane. We're going to stay on topic. And we're going to use, those consolidated actions and information and use unanimous consent on non-controversial topics so that we can move quickly. Without objection, the agenda will show the agenda approved. Moving on. Unanimous consent is your friend. So yeah, efficiency. It's important because the more efficient you get in your meetings, it allows you to do more of the important stuff, which is talking about kids. Remember, we looked at the things, what the research said, that boards that spend more time talking about the needs of their kids tend to have better student outcomes. That's what we want to be doing. We want to be spending our time on that. So when we're efficient in our meeting, it allows us to do that work and have that positive impact. I have no idea what the next slide is. Board member reports. Yeah. So, this is a sticky area. So usually these appear at the end of the meeting, thankfully, but not always. Sometimes boards will put this at the beginning of their meeting.
That's
Where-
ours.
Stop laughing.
Okay. So board member reports. So largely this is performative. I'm just going to submit. When you come and talk about, well, I went to the PTA meeting and I went to this meeting and had a really nice conversations with this person, what does that do for kids? What does that have to do with the needs of your kids? If it isn't aligned to that, then you're probably wasting your time. So I would, most often this shows up as sharing engagement, sharing any relevant information, suggesting, now you have them suggest agenda items. I say maybe here, if you can do it quickly and get it done, that's great. But the idea here is keep it brief. This agenda item can get really bloated. That's why I always like to put it at the end of the agenda because everybody wants to go home. And so they keep their comments short. If you put it at the beginning of the meeting, then you end up talking all over the place. Now, I realize that that you want to show that you're being engaged in community. I think walk the walk. And if you want to share it with your colleagues, put it in an email and say, I went to, this report, and don't have them reply back. It's not for conversations. And this is, where we see this agenda item really bloat, is when the board digresses into an open-ended conversation on whatever topic. Like I always use student discipline as an example. So say I want to report on student discipline. I suggest that agenda item, and then we go into the sprawling conversation, open-ended conversation, where it's just board members. We're not engaging staff. We're just talking about student discipline. It's not for that. Don't do that. Take that conversation, put it in a work session where it can be productive. It's not time for impassioned speeches either. This is not a time for me to stand up in front of my board I'm on TV and share my opinion. If you want to do that, hold a press conference on your own time. Don't use your precious school board time when the board is convened and it's able to do its governance role. Do not waste it on individual board member opinions. There's social media and all sorts of ways that you can share your personal opinions. You don't need to do it in your board meetings. Formal information requests, really, I would argue those need to be an email, going to the chair and going to the superintendent. It could be an agenda item, but generally you don't want to launch into a whole new agenda item unexpected on your staff making a formal information request. So try to keep these comments, try to keep that compact. And when you're looking at your agenda and what you're spending your time on, think, is this impacting kids? And if it's not, consider jettisoning it. Yeah, Annabelle.
I was gonna say, is that something we can start implementing on the next meeting, or would we need?
I was wondering, like, oh, I wonder what people think about that. The superintendent that introduced that, he called it like, oh, we want board members to share like how they're moving the mission. And we do we limit, they have 2 minutes. And that's
Okay.
kind of how the board chair introduced
Usually
it,
we
like,
don't necessarily take that, or
yeah,
some
we.
people don't.
Great.
So far it's kind of nice to hear what people have been up to in the last month. We only do it once a month.
Yeah, if you can get it done in 2 minutes, that's great.
Might be something to move to the end of the agenda.
I would suggest
Yeah.
it.
Definitely.
Unless and I usually get pushback from boards that there's a public expectation that the board is sharing where they're being engaged. And so there's a political component to it that they're trying to demonstrate to community what they've been up to.
Yeah, I don't think that the last meeting we took 10 minutes. I mean, it was just really,
People come prepared.
yeah, just say what we did, what we went to, and that's about it.
The other thing nice about it and putting it at the end, all your staff can go home because let's be frank, they probably don't, it's not that important
Yeah.
for them. Okay. Great. So move board comments to the end. Hey, we got something. That's great. Sounds like your meetings are really good.
I'm curious about what the board might think about even the idea of requests being something that's handled in an email rather than as an agenda item at the end. Yeah, like future agenda. Yeah, those are good.
That's what I was gonna
Sure.
say. That might be a good idea. Just take that off and just send out an email saying, if you have any future agenda items, please respond to this email and just take that off of there.
Or just put it in the 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'm gonna spend my 2 minutes
Or
on.
your 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get 2 minutes and that's it.
Mhm.
Spend it as you will. It's 10 minutes. It's a chunk of time.
Yeah.
Okay. Good work, team. We're blazing through this slide deck. This is great. Okay, public comment. Whew. All right. This is once again,
Are these real pictures?
yeah, those are real board, that's a real board meeting. Actually, some of them may
Look at
be
that.
city council meetings, but yeah, no, those are real. Yeah, that was back in the pandemic. Yep. Okay. So, yeah, so this is, it's the law. The right of public attendance and guaranteed by the public meetings law does not include the right to participate by public testimony or comment. Ooh. There's no guarantee that we get to participate in, or the public can participate in any public meeting. I think I go on here. Other statutes, rules, sorry, it's attorney speak here, but other statutes, rules, charters, ordinances, bylaws outside the public meetings law may require governing bodies to hear public testimony or comment at certain times. There are times when you are required. The big standout one is the budget. You have to have a budget hearing. But in the absence of such requirement, the governing body may conduct a meeting without any public participation. Knock on wood. Yeah, there was legislation to overturn this, but haven't yet. Governing bodies voluntarily may allow limited public participation at their meetings. Okay. The key point here is that a school board meeting is a meeting of the school board in public. We meet in the public, not with the public. Yeah, so your meeting is not a public forum. And that is a misunderstanding by most people in the public. So, but it's really important. The purpose, and I will go on, and this is me fully editorializing, but I would submit that public comment is not community engagement. It serves the purpose of public comment is an opportunity for the board to hear from members of the public on the work that they're doing. Okay. It is not an engaged process. They get to talk at you.
And I know when they had a hot topic session on that at the OSBA thing, and they said like you can limit it to only talking about things that are on the agenda. I mean, there's
Mhm.
lots of parameters that you can put on public comment,
Yep.
that the person can only speak, 3 times a year, or, all sorts of things that you can.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to dissuade you from doing community engagement. What I want you to understand is that public comment is not a way, it's just a way for you to get some input from community. That's really all it does. It's kind of a terrible practice because it creates this expectation of an engaged process, but it's really not. Okay, so from OSBA's point of view, it is definitely a recommended best practice. You should have public comment in your business meetings. And you should, yeah, I just said that. You should have commenters sign up before the meeting, but it should be easy and accessible. This is a big one. It's important that you set the expectation for what's permissible during comments, because no one in the community knows what the rules are. Even though, we have all our policies, it's all very clear. They're not reading that. And so it's important that you say it out loud in the meeting before you start taking comment. Let's see. This is not a debate. And even my own school board, I couldn't break them of it. They take clarifying questions. So board members can ask clarifying questions of commenters. And it's gone sideways multiple times and they still do it. I would love to get them to stop because it's inappropriate, because it creates an interaction between the member of the public and the board. And then it invites that to turn into a conversation and then an argument, and it can get out of hand and derail the meeting. We don't want that to happen. This is a one-way flow of information from the person sitting at the podium to the folks on the dais. It is totally appropriate to follow up afterward, either the superintendent or district staff or board members. Hey, if someone comes in here and sits down at the podium and says something that really you want to engage with, you have on the sign-up sheet, you have their contact information. You can follow up with them afterwards. Go get coffee. That's totally appropriate. You can do that. Okay, so let's dive into this constraining speech. So yeah, you can, like Debbie said, you can enforce or constrain by time, place, and the manner in which people how they speak. So individual, you can constrain time, how long an individual can speak, and the total duration of public comment. I would think that probably the most common is a total of 30 minutes, each person getting 3 minutes. Is that your practice? I'm just curious.
The three, yeah, we definitely do the 3 minutes, yeah. The 30-minute, I mean, the only time we've really had that many comments was at a meeting last year, probably.
Now that we've been adding times, we've been limiting it now to, and we kind of will take the temperature, like if we know maybe there will be a lot of people, then we'll expand the time, but we're noticing that we're finishing, and then if we schedule people later on, then the time is off, so that, we're still trying to figure that out, but
Yeah.
right now we put like 10 minutes. Of course, if we were to get
That's what
more
we allow in the, like, on the agenda.
on the,
Oh,
That's what
okay.
we're allowing.
You're estimating
Yeah,
10
we're
minutes?
we're
estimating.
estimating 10 minutes.
Okay.
We,
Yeah.
it's not in our policy that we did, what did we end up leaving about the time that we could limit? We didn't
Yeah.
set a limit to 30 minutes. We kind of,
Or did
we discussed that because
We
his-
didn't, no.
we
I don't think
didn't, no, we just said we
talked about it.
could
Yeah, but
if we wanted
yeah.
to.
but we could always limit it.
Yeah, I mean,
We kind of used what like historically has happened here in Woodburn. Typically, we don't have a lot of public comment, but and when we do, we kind of know it's coming.
And if they send,
And we've adjusted.
yeah, and if they send a written comment, but they're not going to read it, we all get the copy of it, but I don't read it at the meeting because
Yeah.
that just takes more time. So, if you're here, then we hear it out loud. If not, we've all read that comment.
right. Yeah, and don't make your staff read emails. That was something in the pandemic that got a little ugly. Yeah, public information officers reading emails from the public. Yeah, not a good practice.
And we also talked about, at our Friday meeting, because we had something about like, if it can be responded to, or like, it might be a future agenda item, something, a report that addresses that we would let them know that will be addressed, or, if somebody has something in it, there's a policy that addresses it, we can say like, contact them, thank you for your comment. If you'd like to file if you'd like to file a complaint, this is the process and here's the policy that goes on with that.
Yeah,
So that we have, because we don't want people to feel like they're not being heard. But we want to let them know that like, this is coming up. And so that's going to address your questions.
that's great that you guys, try to follow up to that degree. That's awesome. You might consider putting total duration and just communicating that out, that the board is only going to allow 30 minutes of public comment at this meeting, just so it's clear. So that would be on the agenda and the public announcement. Just
Mhm.
it provides clarity.
Yeah, no
And-
surprises. So.
Yeah, and then if something is blowing up and
Then we can
you've
adjust
got a line, the room's full and, people are out in the lobby wanting to give comment, then you can schedule a special meeting just to have public comment. But trying to preserve the integrity of your business meetings rather than having your business meeting being disrupted and warped by the public comment or the volume of public comment. Because then what that would do is push all your other agenda items later, or you have to take agenda items off. And that's something that you can do. The board can amend its agenda to postpone agenda items to the next business meeting. But that's something where you need to go into recess and chair, vice chair and superintendent, you guys put your heads together and say, hey, which of these things can we punt into next month? What do we got to get done tonight?
So if we know that we're gonna have something that's a hot topic that we think that we're gonna get a lot of comment, maybe the thing would be to just say we're going to have a special meeting for public comment about that.
Yep.
And then, then we would limit public comment at the actual meeting where we're discussing that to 10 minutes, or not have public comment at that meeting.
Yeah, you could
Yeah.
even have public comment before your regular business
Mhm.
meeting. You just have a public comment period.
Yeah.
Get everybody here a little bit early and just have people come in, give you comment for an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and then pivot into your business meeting. There's another. So whole point here is that public comment is at the discretion of the board. So the comment serves the board, not the other way around. I mean, it does, indirectly, because people get their feelings and needs heard, and then hopefully we're responsive to that. So let's see, time. So we talked about time, place, which meeting are they going to show up? And we were just talking about that we can create these different venues. And again, it's at the discretion of the board when people are going to speak and the manner in which they're going to comment. So we're only going to take offline comments. So send us an email, or we're going to be virtual that day. So you're going to have to give virtual comment. You get to choose the venue or the manner in which. You cannot limit by viewpoint. Never, never, never. So
We only want to hear the yes people. You can't do that.
yeah, you can't. It doesn't matter what their opinion is.
Yeah.
If they're following the procedure,
Mhm.
they can say pretty much whatever they want. So we cannot discriminate by viewpoint. What's on the other side? Let's see. Yeah, so you have policy BDDH, and it's a corresponding AR that lays out all these rules. And it's a pretty dynamic policy. It's changed a lot in the 5 years that I've been with OSBA. There's been a lot of changes to it. Yeah, and so all those limits should be specified in your policy. You should require that remarks be addressed to the chair. Even if I'm angry at Michael for what he said, I'm going to direct my comments to the chair. We're not going to have a personal attack on Michael. Prohibiting interruptions, profanity, and personal attacks. Most school boards, I believe, are limiting profanity. That said, I think it was the city council in Portland. They had a lawsuit prevail against them for limiting speech, limiting profanity. So I don't think it's been tested for a school board, but I think generally the school boards are a little bit different because we may have children present, and we're live streaming, so we likely will have children present. So I think there's a bit of a higher bar there. But again, I'm not an attorney. Nothing coming out of my mouth is a legal opinion. Anytime we constrain speech, we are taking a risk. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The requiring remarks to be addressed to the board chair. How do we inform the public of that? Like,
Yeah.
when the chair reads the script, kind of include a blurb for that?
Yeah. You put it in there. All remarks will be addressed to the chair.
Okay.
So when I'm talking, I'm looking at Debbie.
Could we add something also to that said, just be mindful that there might be children,
You could.
yeah, about
We do.
do we have that? in
Yeah,
our-
it's something like we model the way for the
Oh, that's
children,
right,
something
yeah.
like that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, yes, as a reminder, we model the way for our children. That's right. We did
Please
have that.
keep your comments respectful.
Yeah, respectful.
Yep.
And don't identify staff.
So whatever your procedure is, whatever limitations that are as comfortable for this board, The main thing is this last, that in the blue box there is consistently apply the rules, no matter what the person is saying. You may not agree. You may stridently disagree. What they say may be viscerally offensive. You still have to apply the rules evenly. Okay? It's really, really important because when we get inconsistent, that's when we start seeing lawsuits. We don't want that to happen. And we want to be fair, right?
Yeah. I think our new policy, although
I'll do that.
our board wanted a policy to be very inclusive of everyone, it'll now come with its challenges too, because you won't have, like, our old policy required people to submit their written comment in advance. And so sometimes I was able to kind of skim if they were talking about personnel or had identifiable information, then I could reach out and say, hey, this is what our policy says, do you want to revise your comment? And a lot of the times people are like, oh, okay, yeah, I can do that. But now that they get to come and just read their statement, it'll be like a lot of pressure on the board chair to stop that. 'Cause we won't
Yeah.
know what they're gonna say.
Yeah, you don't. And you have to make, it's possibly the hardest thing about being a board chair is that you have to make split-second decisions about people's, free speech rights.
So Jenny, you have the kind of like table mats for us. Would it,
Forgot them today.
and
sorry.
well, normal in the regular meetings also. And so one of the things, because I tend to be someone who, obviously repetition also helps. Would it be possible to print something out so when we have it on the desk as like a reminder that these are the kind of expectations when you're doing
Oh.
public comment?
That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I mean, have it
Like a
on
little
that desk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
placemat.
5 minutes.
Placemat.
So you touched on a really good point about comments about staff. That is becoming a gray area, but we'll get there.
Oh.
So yeah, so this is the why it's so darn hard. Yeah, the chair must balance three duties: uphold constitutional free speech rights. Your job is to protect people's right to speak in public, but you also have to maintain order and safety and efficiency, and you have to enforce the board's rules consistently, and it is incredibly difficult. Yeah. Good luck.
Thank you.
No, you're gonna be fine.
Miss
You're gonna be
Ma'am.
fine. You just have to do the very best you can.
Yeah.
And be as consistent as you can. And be clear when you are limiting speech, and we'll talk about
Yeah.
this here. And I think like I said, these are new slides. This is new content. Yeah, the job is not silence dissent. Yeah, so those offensive comments, it's to ensure fairness, decorum, and equal opportunity to be heard. So I really I appreciate that clarifying, statement there, is that my job is not to shut this person down. It's to make sure that everybody has access and that no one is getting harmed. Okay. Whew. It's tough. Okay. So what speech is and is not protected? I used the free speech guide from OSBA. Have you guys seen that? Oh my goodness, I gotta send that to you.
Yes, please.
Oh, I'm gonna put that down as an,
Could you include the pillars, their 6 principles?
yeah, I'll give you the slide.
All right.
Oh, perfect. That's great.
Oh goodness. Yeah, it's the speech. I'll send it to you. Yeah, no, I could send it to you before I leave. So what is and is not protected? So protected speech, anything. Verbal comments, anything that comes out of my mouth is protected speech. Signs, if I hold up a sign, I can have a sign. I can't be disruptive with the sign, but I can have a sign. Gestures, expressive content. I wish Spencer was here and he could explain that because I don't know what expressive content is.
Might be the look on your face.
Maybe it is. Yeah, maybe, or no, a gesture would be the middle finger. I'm trying to think. Anyway, yeah, all of that is protected under the First Amendment. What's not protected, and this, I appreciate these bullet points because it kind of makes it clear. true threats. So you can't have people say, I'm going to,
Yeah.
I'm going to kick the crud out of the superintendent. That's not okay. You cannot threaten people. Defamation. This is another Spencer question because I've chaired meetings where board members have been defamed and it happens all the time. I mean, people, yeah, board members, we just,
Public elected official thing and.
yeah. And so I really, I want to kind of get some clarity from my legal team because as far as I understand, people in the public can say whatever the heck they want about school board member or politicians. Incitement to imminent lawless action. So you can't, if they're saying, I don't know, burn the building down, that's not legal. You can't do that. You can shut them down for that. And then solicitation to commit a crime, that would be kind of the same thing. So that's, none of that is protected speech.
So like expressive content, would that maybe be signs? Like, because I know at one meeting we had signs and.
Yeah, no, signs apparently, as long as they're not disruptive.
Mhm.
So I can hold it in front. I don't think
Yeah,
that you
you
can
can
wave it
walk it,
around.
yeah.
You can, as long as everybody can see, Yeah, so the bar for unprotected speech is very high. So when in doubt, just let them speak. Okay?
And I guess probably partly why we wanted to change the policy is because previously, if they submitted a comment and it was written, they had to read what was exactly on that. They couldn't veer from that. And so it, in a heated situation, people's emotions, they feel like they have other things they want to say. And so it was like, no, you can't say that. You can't say that.
Yeah.
So,
Did you guys get a legal review on that practice? Because
Yeah, that was a practice. It wasn't actually in the policy. It was kind of
Mhm.
implied, and it was a practice the previous board had.
okay. Yeah, because that's like I said, I'm not an attorney and I don't know the law, but it's definitely makes my spider sense go because
yeah, well,
that
we're
sounds-
not doing that.
it sounds like viewpoint discrimination.
Yeah.
The board is approving the comments, but then other people's comments can get turned away. That seems dangerous to me. I would get an legal opinion.
Yeah. Well, we're not doing it. I mean, that was one of the first things that we changed because it was just like, when you get up
Yeah.
there, you say what you feel. And if you've
Yeah.
written it down and you veer off of that script, that's fine. Cause it's about what you have to say in that moment.
Not only for
Yeah.
me, but also like parents and families that I had worked with, it created a lot of barriers to try to come in and participate. So those were
Yeah,
my
other thing. That was the
Yeah.
other thing. Yeah.
Okay.
One
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
one thing that's not on there what's not protected, but it's in policy is comments regarding staff.
He's going to talk about
Oh, it's
I'll
coming.
get there
Okay.
because that's new. That's new stuff. So yeah, when and how the board may interrupt. So yeah, so if they're breaking the rules and exceeding their allotted time, you can shut them down because it's not fair.
Right.
If you've only allotted 30 minutes of time in your agenda for a public comment and that person is going over their time limit, they're taking time from somebody else, and that's not fair. Speech violates meeting rules, as in naming staff when policy forbids it. So do you have that in your policy?
Mhm.
Good. Yeah, if you're constraining speech on staff, it should be in your policy.
Yeah, there's a part here about comments regarding staff members. Person speaking during the designated portion of the agenda for public comment may offer objective criticism of district operations and programs. The board will not hear comments regarding any individual district staff member.
Outstanding. That's really important because that gives the chair the solid ground to stand on to constrain that. Now, yeah, we'll get to the slide. This is where it gets squishy. The speech significantly invades the rights of others. So like harassment or sustained discrimination. I don't know what that means. I'll be dead honest with you. I don't know where the line is here. I would consult your district council and get advice on what that is. I do know that if it violates your policy, like all children belong, ACB, then that gives you solid ground to act. So, but yeah, and so when that comes up, we can, you're gonna calmly interrupt them. I have to stop you there. Your comments violate policy ACB, for this reason. You could terminate, you could ask that, I think it says, ask them to restate their comments, or, depending, if they won't come to order after a couple tries, then you may terminate their speaking privileges. But make a few attempts, and you might consult with counsel before, get some clarity from counsel on when you can do that. But if kind of like 3 strikes you're out, sort of thing. Above all, yeah, key is stay professional, stay cool. You won't be cool in the moment, but stay as cool as you can. And yeah, don't debate. It's your meeting. Okay. All right. Yeah, here we go. So some boards prohibit comments about staff and students during public comment. You do. So there is risk associated with it. So because you are limiting speech. And so, yeah, but if allowed, interrupt, remind the speaker of the rule. Our public comment does not allow discussion of staff or students. You have it in policy, so you have that solid ground to stand on. The main thing here is that you're applying it consistently. So this also means that we can't give praise of staff either.
That's in our policy as well.
Yeah. And that stinks, particularly as board members. We're not able to do that. It's not, yeah, it's hard. Yeah. So is it truly personal? Can you identify the person, or is it a matter of public concern? So is it broad? It's a really hard space to be in. It's hard to adjudicate these things on the fly.
The staff piece of it, it's also hard. For example, if you have a staff that you're non-renewing their contract or something and people want to come and sign up for public comment about that staff member, we've had that before.
Yep.
Many years ago, but that was hard too. That people had to revise their script to not violate the policy.
Right. So you're between a rock and a hard place on this issue. On one hand, you're curtailing the public's First Amendment right to speak. On the other, you have employees with the right to confidentiality. And you're weighing those things against each other. I don't think the legal system, courts are settled on this, and that's why we're getting this pushback. So I can't give you advice. I'm not an attorney. Okay, hate speech and harassment. Even a offensive or hateful speech may be protected if it doesn't create a substantial disruption or invade others' rights. Yeah, if speech crosses into harassment or discrimination, violating, then here's our quote of ACB: every student belongs, or JFCF, harassment and bullying. The chair may, of course, interrupt them, let them know that the policy that it's being violated, and then, yeah, you may just shut them down. This is another one where you're going to want to chat with district council and just get, go to your policy ACB and be conversant with it. Yeah, this is a really, really tough space. And I've seen this happen. I've seen people saying horrible things about students. Yeah, and you have to make a decision on whether you're going to allow it or not. Really tough. I wish I could be more helpful, but I can't give legal advice. But I can teach the controversy.
Right.
Okay. It's just know that it's hard, and yeah, seek additional guidance. I would send you, Spencer is probably, all the folks on our legal team are really good, but Spencer's awesome in this space. He is really good. Although it is really, he can be infuriating because he understands the complexity of it, And that's what he'll teach you, how he'll advise you, and it's not, he won't come down hard on anything, so. It's just hard,
Mhm.
and it's hard right now. It's become harder.
Yeah.
Recently. Okay. Hate speech and harassment. Wait, document, oh yeah, document. Okay, moving on. Okay, so kind of wrapping this up, before interrupting a speaker silently, ask yourself, is this about viewpoint or conduct? So is this about the content of what they're saying, or is this disrupting the meeting? Okay. Is it violating posted meeting rule or policy? You know, and if it is, you could probably curtail the speech. Is it creating disruption or invading others' rights? Then that you can curtail on that. Can it be redirected rather than shut down? So can you counsel the person, say what you're speaking, this is, you know, violates our harassment policy. Can you reframe your comments such that it's not harassment? Yeah, and then our advice is, if unsure, let them comment and then follow up later. Yeah, so we're really taking I would say a liberal view here, just very hands off. Yeah. Any questions? It's clear as mud, isn't it? That was really helpful. Really helpful. I'm glad that we had this conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wish I could be more definitive, but it's just a really tough space. Hopefully it won't be an issue for you.
Mhm.
Okay, better public comment. This is a fun slide. So yeah, how do we improve? Because public comment, let's be frank, it's pretty awful. It's just this stilted situation. It serves a purpose, but it's not great. But how can you? Well, I think one of the key things you can do, I'll get the report from, so when you have something brewing and people are coming in hot, get that hot topic before you take public comment. Get the report on that. Because you may answer some folks' questions, or they may reframe their comments based on the information that district will share. A lot of the time people create opinions in the absence of information, solid information. Okay. So get them that solid information, and it tends to make their comments more valuable to the board. Okay. So get your report from staff first. Go ahead and receive the comment, you know, hold, you know, like within the rules that you have. And then at the end, reserve a little bit of time for the board members, no more than 10 minutes, 5 if you can manage it, to reflect on what was heard. So synthesize the public comment. I heard these themes in public comment today. The other one is follow up, and it sounds like you guys are already doing that, following up on your public comment. So if someone comes in with a complaint, chair is going to hand that off to the superintendent, but then next month, board and superintendent come and say, hey, remember that complaint about the baseball shed last month? I followed up with that parent and we've resolved that issue. Just letting them know, closing the loop on that. So that public comment it makes it a more engaged process, even though the actual ritual of public comment is not engaged. So public comment can be better. So just a few things, suggestions to.
I think
Fine.
what we ran into was our policy says something about the chair will respond to it. And so what we did is we made it so that Juan and I collaborate on it. And Michael,
Perfect.
we collaborate on it, and then like I sent the email. Sometimes it may be that, like, we've heard that that's going to be a future agenda item that could be announced at a meeting or something like that.
Yep.
We just kind of did a workaround with that.
That's great. I'm glad that you guys are taking a collaborative approach on that. Yeah.
Also, the part about closing the loop that was also important when we were discussing it was so that some folks that may want to come and repeat their public comment know that there's closure, or if there's been something kind of done about it. And so that helped, hopefully, you know, to deter any
Yeah.
repetitions of folks coming in with the same topic.
Yeah, hearing the same thing over and over. Particularly when you know something's happening and, or it's already done and, yeah. Then they can come and say, and share something else. Something else that might be valuable.
Yes.
Okay, so this is kind of bring us back to board culture. This idea, just the idea is embedded in here. The chair is a servant of the group. Um, you, it's true. It's not the chair's meeting. It's the board's meeting. We are a servant leader as the board chair. I'm sorry, Debbie. As
I
much as-
try.
as much as we want to dictate, we really can't. And that, as the chair, we always wanted, the question in the back of your head is, how do I get the very best out of this group? How do I facilitate this group to get the best as possible decision making? Hewing to that culture of trust, and coming to the work with humility. I think that's what makes the job most rewarding. Control of discussion is really, really important. It sounds like you guys have a pretty good handle on it. I really like the 2-time round robin. I always preach it. Yeah, if you can, try to implement it. The whole point is that ensures inclusion and equity. There's a lot of folks who will tell you that Robert's Rules of Order are not inclusive or keeps people out, but I would disagree. I think it does a really good job of ensuring, if used properly, it ensures that all voices get to be heard. Courtesy and respect are required, with all caps required. This is you guys creating a safe space. The way you show up, the way you enforce your own rules for conduct in your boardroom and decorum creates that that space for social and psychological safety, so people can show up and be vulnerable and share their true selves here as much as possible, but in a school board meeting. But that's what we're always striving for. It's for people to be safe, whoever they are, whether they're members of the community, members of staff, or a kiddo. We want them to be safe when they sit here at the podium. And that we're going to do one thing at a time, and this is kind of germane to our business meetings, that we're going to use an efficient linear process as we work through that checklist of items that's on our agenda. And so that we're focused and we're efficient with our time. Because I think the next slide, yeah. That's right. I put a prompt question in here. So if the board that lived into these, what might look different? Just based on, it sounds like you guys are doing a lot of this stuff already. Anything coming up?
I just want to give kudos to this board. They really, the majority is newly elected, and they've really taken, like, you can just tell that they really want to do a good job. So kudos to all of you. You are doing a great job. You're coming prepared. We're being very efficient. Having those weekly meetings, we're efficient. We're bringing up things that need to be discussed. It's going really well.
Good.
And having OSBA trainings helps a lot.
Yeah.
I think when you come into these roles and you really don't know what to expect, you kind of get this clear picture. And we got really lucky that everybody was available to go to the summer conference, and that like really set a solid foundation. I'm really excited for this.
You guys
board.
are coming to AC to watch your kids perform, right?
Oh, 100%.
I'm so pumped. It's going to be so cool. Okay, focus. I've got 23 minutes and 48 seconds. So retaining focus. This is a really important skill capacity that the board should cultivate, keeping your eye on what is the work that we need to be doing. Because there's plenty of distractions out there. There are plenty of things to draw your attention away. So, okay, so let's dive into this. So assuming that you only meet once a month, I don't think you do. You guys are meeting twice a month now. So yeah, so you'd have 72 hours, but 72 hours in a year. A board that meets only once a month, it's 36 governance hours, less than one work week that they spend in a whole year And most boards that are only meeting once a month, they're skipping Julys. So it's actually less. It's just really not that much time to actually do our governance work. I don't want to diminish all the work that you do outside of board meetings. I know that you do a lot of work, but this is the time the board has come together and has the capacity to do its governance work. Yeah, and so when we're thinking about our agenda, we want to think about what are the required versus discretionary agenda items. There are some things that are required that we have to take up in due time during our school year, which limits the amount of time that we have for discretionary agenda items. Director Adams is really bugaboo interest in student discipline. You know, that may have to be pushed out because we just don't have enough time on the agenda. Time is limited, and you need to consider how are you going to decide how are you going to spend your time, and how do you decide in agenda planning? And there are no really, well, we're going to talk about the ways that you make those decisions here in just a sec. Okay. So I want to talk about, go back to balanced governance. You've probably seen a graph like this from me before. But these are two roles that board members have going on at all times. One side is our delegate role. That's we're elected officials. We're accountable to the folks that elect to us. We are their delegates on the board and representing their interests. On the other side, we have our trustee role. You're trustees on a board, and that is your interest in students. Independent. It's this apolitical component. So one side is this very political, force that's pulling on us. On the other is our responsibility to our kiddos. And more, it seems that these things are not pulling in the same direction. They're actually pulling in opposites. And so we're always going to be shifting back and forth between these. Boards that get pulled far to their delegate roles tend to get distracted. They tend to be pulled by special interests. On the other hand, boards that tend to focus on their trustee role tend to focus on what the mission of the organization is. That said, that doesn't mean we can just leave our delegate role behind. We are elected and we are accountable, and our job is as members of the community is to hold the district accountable to the interests of the community. So you'll always have this pulling back and forth, but it will cause distractions. Okay, so our best governance happens at this intersection. That we want to have aligned values. Remember when we were here and I was asking you questions about what you believe. Can every kid learn? Can every kid succeed? We talked about what's an acceptable graduation rate. That's starting to hew toward those aligned values. What you believe is possible for your kids. And doesn't mean we're all going to have the same values, but that we're all kind of pointing in the same direction. Okay. The other piece here is an effective process. So we've been talking a lot about process for business meetings. And so we need to have a robust, effective meetings to have that process to operationalize our governance. And then I put complete information in quotes because so before I worked at OSBA, I worked at Oregon State University. I ran a program called the Rural Communities Explorer, where we provided demographic, social, and economic indicator data for decision makers, just like you, but also county commissioners, municipal folks, nonprofit professionals, folks like that. And whenever we have information, when we have a question before us, we're going to get information from our staff. But as soon as you have that information, more questions come up. And so there's this information paradox. As decision makers, we're always striving for certainty because we have to cast a vote. But at some point, you're not going to have any more available information. There's no such thing as truly complete information. There's only enough to give you confidence to cast your vote. Okay. So we want to have as complete information as we can with the understanding is that is always going to be imperfect. Okay, we'll never have all the information that we want. Okay. Sometimes board work feels like this. Feels like you're on a fishing boat in the Bering Sea and you're going to sink. You feel like you're upside down. It can be scary sometimes. So what do we do? So the board operates kind of in these two modes. Now, we've been spending a lot of time talking about what's on the left-hand side of the screen, the board acting in its governance mode. This is what we see in our business meetings. You're casting votes, making decisions. You're receiving operational reports. You're approving initiatives. You're doing your decision-making job. That's your primary thing. It's what we're most comfortable with. But the reality is that we're in a political time. We have culture wars in the United States. The expectations on K-12 education have changed. We talked about that in our last session. We're feeling a lot of pressure, and we can't get all of that done in our governance role. And so you have this other role that you're in right now, in this learning, in this receptive mode, where you're learning. So you're processing these reports. You're not just receiving a report, you're actually processing that information. That's going to be the work that you're going to be doing with the superintendent this year. Learning assessment literacy, learning all that piece. You're actually going to be learning what that means. If you're serving as committee liaisons, I'm working with another board. They're doing a bond, and they have board members who are liaisons to the bond oversight committee. So that's a learning process. Doing what we're doing right now, your own board development, but any other learning that you're doing. And community engagement is all you're in a receptive mode. You're not casting votes, you're not making decisions, you're just gathering information towards that decision. Okay? Does that all make sense? So we kind of toggle back and forth. And that's why I always advocate for boards to meet twice a month and have a business meeting and then a work session and going back and forth. And that's what you're doing, is you're toggling between these two modes. We do some learning, then we bring it into a business meeting and make decisions. And we flip back and we keep going back and forth. So we have spent the preponderance of our time talking about linear meeting processes, which is our business meeting. That's plan A up there. Very linear. That's the way Robert designed it. It's the most efficient way to make decisions. And that's the way it's designed. Now, the reality is that we find that school boards kind of go to plan B. They kind of build some open-ended, or they reflexively build some open-ended processes into their business meetings. They break Robert's Rules of Order. They start having conversations during their business meetings because they're trying to process complex and difficult topics like, school cell phone bans. It's one where boards had lots of, conversations. So the reality is that a lot of school boards right now are doing not linear work, they're doing semi-linear, meetings, because they're having these open-ended conversations and they adopt conversational approaches in their meetings, which is a bad habit in a business meeting. What I would advocate for is that you have fully non-linear work sessions that aren't going to be conducted with Robert's Rules of Order, that allow you to have those open-ended conversations, that they are not going to be a straight line. They're going to be an intentionally circuitous path where we're going to have conversations. We're then going to take that topic and we're going to send it out to, to community. We're going to have direct the superintendent to stand up committees to gather information. And then we're going to get that report back in a work session. And we're going to process that information, have conversation, and keep going. We're going to squiggle all over the place. We can't put parliamentary procedure on that because it will fail. It's not what it's designed to do. So what does that look like in, when we think about this in the virtual application? We don't want to do plan B because that's an abrogation of Robert's Rules. What we really want is something that looks like this. where we're going to do a nonlinear process. We're going to gather lots of information. We're going to learn a lot. We're going to learn about the technical aspects of things. We're going to get input from community. We're going to hear from our students, get lots of input. And then once we're feeling like we understand the situation, then we're going to bring that into a business meeting. So boards that do this well, they bump up against a problem that they start to look like groupthink, because when they're making a decision, that's when people start paying attention. When you're going to actually take the vote, that's when but then the board doesn't really debate. They're not fighting over it because they did the whole squiggly process, the work sessions, they did multiple work sessions to process that topic. They resolved all their conflicts then, and then brought it into their business meeting. So it appears to be groupthink, but really it's not. They're just resolving their conflicts in that nonlinear process. So it sounds like this is the direction that the board is heading, and I applaud that progress. Because I think this is where the best board work happens. And it's leveraging, it's using Robert for what, our business means for what they were intended, which is decision making, and uses our work sessions for what they're intended, which is for us to be in our receptive mode and to learn. Okay. Noting my time. So focus. How do we focus? The first thing that you want to focus on, remember, I had you visualize your school district as a cruise ship. And then if you got him a captain's hat and he wore it, I would have to bring chocolate back. Okay. So
Dark chocolate.
so this is the slide where you're commissioning the journey. And so our strategic plan is our map. So when we're considering what's going to be on an agenda, are we going to ask, is this topic going to take us to our final destination? To the island of student success paradise, where every kid graduates on time with a plan for post-secondary, life? Is this topic part of what we need to be doing to move us towards that goal? Is this topic aligned to a board or district priority? One of our pillars, they're up on the wall right there. Will this topic advance one or more of our goals? So that's first and foremost. Our strategic plan is the lens that we shoot potential agenda items through. And it's going to screen out some of them. Maybe discipline isn't the topic we need to be talking about. Well, actually, but say, doesn't matter. Whenever someone comes up with a potential agenda item, you're going to want to say, does this fit into our strategic priorities? Because this is what this team has determined. If you act on this, it's going to move the needle for your kids. That's our core mission, right? So then we want to use that as the screening tool. I want to introduce this idea of strategic abandonment. There are some things that are not going to fit in there. If it doesn't take you, if it's not going to move the needle for your kids, if it's not aligned to your priorities, it's not a strategy that's going to work for you, let it go. Or set it aside for later. So practice strategic abandonment, letting go of that. You can also use a decision-making lens. This is often called an equity lens. And that would mean that the board is using that. I would guess the district has an equity lens, but does the board use the equity lens? Or if you do, how are you using it? So this is kind of a sanitized version but it fits. Yeah, I borrowed it from my district. So another thing that I want to share with the board is it's called the focus framework. It's actually old. Lighthouse is from, the early 2000s. But the focus framework still is a great tool for focusing the board's attention in a work session. So pick your thorny topic, whatever it is, but here's the focus framework. What's a tough topic? Pick a controversial topic. Ooh, transgender sports. Let's do that one.
Yeah, that is one. Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. I can feel people's getting tense already. So yeah. So, I mean, it takes the first question is, What are your expectations? What are your greatest hopes for your students in the district in this area? What would you want for your kids? Get clear on what your values are. Next is learning together. What information does the board need to ensure that the best decisions are made? So how many transgender athletes do we have? What does the law say? You know, do we have any policies on that? What's the case law? You know, you're probably going to need to talk to some transgender students, either from here or somewhere in Oregon. Next one is create conditions for success. What does the board need to do to ensure the expectations can be met? You may have to do some resource reallocations, you know, to make that work. Then you're going to define what success is. How will success be defined, and how are we going to track progress toward that? And then how are you going to communicate? How are you going to build that public will to succeed? This is all in the board's governance role, but it's a great tool for a work session for you to process that. Are all the topics and things that we need to get into this work session so that we're ready to make a vote in our business meeting? I'm a big fan of the focus framework for guiding our work sessions. So when board work looks like this, when all else fails, I want you to come back here. Always focus on your kids. If you're upside down, you don't know what to do, people are screaming and yelling, try to find some clarity in your head and come back and remind yourself that you're doing this for kiddos. Center all your effort on and interest on your kids. And then ask yourself some questions. Is this an adult problem or a kiddo problem? The most controversial questions or problems that come up for school boards are often adult problems. They're not problems with kids. It's usually adults that are pulling at our ears in grocery stores or sending us heated emails. So discriminating between what is an adult problem, what's a kiddo problem is a really powerful tool. Yeah, kiddo problems are actually tend to be easier to address. Yeah, how does this align? When anybody is talking to you, how does this align with our strategic priorities or our goals? You should know this document inside and out. And when people are talking to you, does this align with our priorities? And if you're completely upside down, just ask yourself, is this right for kids? I wish every elected decision maker had this on the back of their nameplate, from this boardroom all the way up to Congress. You know, because if you're asking yourself, is it right for kids? You can't go too far wrong. Okay, that's it. I came in on time. I'm going to go through this. No, get out your smartphones. I want you to evaluate. Was that okay?
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah. It's my first time with the new iteration of these slides. You guys are already making all the right moves, though. We didn't cover that much that's new. Let's see. So I'm going to send you the free speech guide. And you're considering moving board member comments to the end of your agenda. You can also, for your public comment, you can constrain comment to agenda items if you'd like, to further make your meetings efficient. Okay. Whew. With that, I yield back to the chair and suggest a recess.
Thank you, Vince.
At this time, the Board of Directors of Woodburn School District will now move into executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602I to review and evaluate the employment-related performance of the Chief Executive Officer of any public body, a public officer, employee, or staff member who does not request an open hearing. ORS 192.6602F to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection, and ORS 192.6602D
to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for coming. We are now in executive session pursuit. Oh, get out of here. Just kidding. Thank you for coming. Does anybody need a break? I know, I love that. We will now call the meeting back to order. Our action item is the decision for executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602F. So we have those motions. So that would be our young gentleman that came, no? Oh, our person that came. So I would entertain a motion to either overturn or uphold the inter-district transfer.
I move to overturn the inter-district transfer decision reviewed in executive session.
Is there a
A
second?
second.
It's been moved and seconded to overturn the inter-district transfer decision reviewed in executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, everyone, for your time this evening. I now move to adjourn the meeting at 9:43 PM.